From ancient marketplaces to royal dining tables, spices shaped history in ways we're still discovering. These precious seasonings sparked wars, built empires, and created vast trading networks that connected distant cultures across dangerous seas and endless deserts. In medieval Europe, a pound of nutmeg could buy you 3 sheep or a cow. That's right, these seasonings we casually sprinkle on our food today were once worth their weight in gold. But why were spices so incredibly valuable? First, they were extremely hard to get. Spices like pepper, cinnamon, and cloves only grew in specific tropical regions thousands of miles away. Getting them to European markets meant months of dangerous travel across oceans and deserts. Plus, spices weren't just for cooking. They were essential medicines, preservatives, and status symbols. Wealthy merchants and nobles would show off their riches by serving heavily spiced dishes at feasts. Some spices were so precious that they were kept in locked boxes with the family jewels. The demand was huge, but the supply was tiny, driving prices through the roof. A handful of peppercorns could literally set you up for life. Venice became the undisputed master of the spice trade through a mix of smart business and clever politics. The city's location was perfect, right between Europe and the eastern trade routes. But location alone wasn't enough. The Venetians created an amazing system where they controlled every step of the spice trade. They made special deals with Egyptian rulers to get spices from Arab traders, built massive warehouses to store their goods, and even created their own navy to protect their ships. They were so good at keeping their trade secrets that other Europeans had no idea where spices actually came from. The Venetians spread wild stories about cinnamon being collected from birds' nests and pepper growing in forests guarded by snakes. This helped them keep prices high and their monopoly strong. For almost 200 years, if you wanted spices in Europe, you had to go through Venice. The journey to bring spices to Europe was filled with incredible dangers. Merchant ships faced massive waves in the Indian Ocean that could snap their wooden vessels like twigs. Storms during monsoon season would throw ships off course, leaving crews lost at sea for weeks. But nature wasn't the only threat. Pirates were in constant worry. These raiders knew exactly where to wait for spice-laden ships, especially in the narrow straits near Madagascar and Indonesia. A single successful raid could make a pirate crew rich for life. Smart merchants tried to protect themselves by traveling in convoys with armed escort ships, but this made the journey slower and more expensive. The seas were so dangerous that shipping companies expected to lose at least 1 in every 5 ships they sent out. Despite these risks, the huge profits from the spice trade kept merchants coming back for more. While sea routes were dangerous, the land journey along the Silk Road was just as challenging. Caravans of traders would spend months crossing vast deserts, steep mountain passes, and lawless territories. These brave merchants loaded their camels with precious spices, traveling in groups of hundreds for safety. A typical journey from China to Europe could take 2 years and cover over 4,000 miles. The traders faced sandstorms in the Taklamakan Desert, freezing temperatures in the Pamir Mountains, and attacks from bandits who knew exactly where to ambush wealthy caravans. To survive, merchants relied on a network of caravanserais, fortified inns spaced about 20 miles apart. These were like ancient truck stops, offering food, shelter, and a safe place to rest. Many traders would swap goods at these stops rather than make the entire journey themselves. The spice merchants of old were masters of secrecy, protecting their valuable trade knowledge like modern companies guard their patents. These clever traders would split their spice recipes into parts, giving each worker only a piece of the process. In Venice, spice mixing happened in dark rooms where workers couldn't see the full mix of ingredients. Merchants created fake recipes to throw off competitors, adding impossible-to-find ingredients or making up exotic spices that didn't exist. They even spread stories about spices being blessed by priests or requiring special moonlight harvesting to keep others from trying to copy their blends. The most successful trading families passed down their real recipes through coded messages that only family members could understand. Some of these secret spice recipes were so well protected that they've been lost to history. The fight for control of the spice trade turned Europe's great powers into bitter enemies. Portugal struck first, sending ships around Africa to reach India directly. This bold move broke Venice's monopoly and sparked intense competition. Soon the Dutch and English joined the race, building powerful trading companies backed by their navies. These companies weren't just businesses. They were more like private armies with their own ships, soldiers, and even the power to wage war. The competition got nasty fast. Ships would attack each other on sight, trading posts were burned down, and entire islands were captured just for their nutmeg trees. The Dutch were particularly aggressive, wiping out local populations in the Banda Islands to control the nutmeg trade. This period showed how far nations would go to control these valuable seasonings. Let's explore the ancient spice gardens where these precious seasonings first grew. In the steamy jungles of Indonesia, clove trees reached toward the sky while nutmeg fruits ripened in the canopy above. Local farmers had special techniques passed down through generations for growing and harvesting these valuable plants. They knew exactly when to pick the clove buds right before they flowered, and how to dry them in the sun until they turned dark brown. In India's Malabar coast, black pepper vines climbed up tall trees, their green berries turning red in the tropical heat. Farmers used tall bamboo ladders to reach the highest vines, carefully picking each peppercorn by hand. These spice gardens were so valuable that local rulers posted guards to protect them, and only trusted workers could enter during harvest time. Back in medieval times, people turned to spices as their main weapons against sickness. When the Black Death swept through Europe, doctors stuffed their plague masks with cloves, cinnamon, and myrrh, believing these strong-smelling spices would protect them from disease. They weren't totally wrong. Many spices we now know have natural germ-fighting properties. Ginger was used to settle upset stomachs, while garlic and pepper were thought to fight off colds. Wealthy families would burn expensive frankincense and cinnamon in their homes, thinking the aromatic smoke would drive away illness. Spice-based medicines were so valuable that many towns kept them locked up in special pharmacies, only selling them with a doctor's permission. Even humble peppermint was treated like a miracle cure, used for everything from headaches to heart problems. The arrival of exotic spices completely transformed how European royalty ate and entertained. Kings and queens began demanding dishes loaded with expensive seasonings to show off their wealth and power. A royal feast in the 1400s might include chicken dusted with gold and soaked in saffron sauce, or a whole roasted peacock redressed in its feathers and sprinkled with cloves and nutmeg. Chefs competed to create the most impressive spiced dishes, often using 20 or 30 different seasonings in a single recipe. The more spices used, the more important the guest was considered to be. In fact, royal courts had special spice masters who controlled these precious ingredients and created unique spice blends for the king's table. These elaborate dishes weren't just about taste. They were a way for rulers to prove they could afford the most expensive ingredients in the world. The spice trade did much more than move seasonings across the world. It created lasting connections between different cultures. Along with their precious cargo, merchants carried new ideas, art, and technologies between East and West. Chinese porcelain started appearing on European tables, while Middle Eastern carpets decorated Western homes. Traders learned each other's languages, shared stories, and brought back new foods like rice and sugar. Buddhist statues found their way to Mediterranean ports, while European glass beads became popular in Asian markets. Even music traveled the spice routes. New instruments and melodies spread from culture to culture. Perhaps most importantly, medical knowledge flowed both ways, with doctors sharing healing techniques and remedies. These cultural exchanges helped break down barriers between different peoples and showed that despite their differences, humans everywhere shared similar hopes, fears, and dreams. Thanks for joining us on this flavorful journey through history. From ancient trade routes to royal feasts, spices shaped our world in amazing ways. If you enjoyed this spicy tale, hit like, subscribe, and share with a friend who loves history or cooking.